Welcome back to the County Seat. Our topic today are oil sands out in the Uintah Basin, formerly known in a previous life as tar sands, but this is actually a more appropriate description of the material. You know, as we left the last block, we were talking about the fact that there is actually, beyond the Sitlo blocks, there is a really vast resource in these oil sands. In fact, the BLM estimated how much?
Well, let me just back up from it.
Sure.
In 2006, Congress directed the BLM to enter into a commercial oil shale leasing program with oil shale and oil sands. And I'm just going to talk about oil sands here for a moment. But they did not analyze and take all of that, but they did there was 431,000 acres there in eastern Utah that they identified as being prime area for the oil sands development. And there was a lawsuit filed by a special interest group. And so in a settlement discussion, BLM said, we're willing to take a second look at this. And in the second look, essentially what they're doing is the preferred alternative that BLM is proposing is to cut that down to 90,000 acres. You know, that can have significant economic devaluation to the state of Utah. And let me just give one quick example. I was looking at an old EIS. I mean, it's like I've got nothing else to do but look at an old EIS. But
that is an
environmental impact statement. But in the late 80s, there were these wilderness study areas that was being developed around the state of Utah. One of them was Winter Ridge, which is right next to this area. In this Winter Ridge area, in this EIS, it shows that if they went ahead and made this a wilderness study area, that just in the mineral lease revenues alone, over a 100-year period, it would be about $2 million a year of lost mineral revenues to the nation, the state of Utah. And that's in late 80s, 1988, you know, in that area numbers. So, you know, the reserves out there are tremendous. And that's on a little 42,000 acre WSA. Can you imagine reducing from 431,000 acres to about 90,000 acres? You know, well, what's the economic impacts in those kind of discussions and decisions?
Well, the BLM would argue that, well, it's an unproven technology, and until you can commercially develop it, I mean, I believe that is the argument they're postulating is, let's start with some smaller tracts and see how you do, and then we can come back for more.
And I would totally disagree with the argument, because the first thing that has to happen on federal lands is you have to have an EIS. The EIS, you've got to prove the technology, you've got to prove that the air, the environment, that everything is safe and secure. And so why not do as Congress directed and enter into a commercial oil shale leasing program? By the way, that has never happened to this date yet. BLM has never entered into this commercial oil shale leasing program.
Okay, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, trying to get this out. Actually, you brought up a good point, though, and I would like to address this. That's the environmental impact of this. I mean, I hear people saying, oh, it's going to ruin the air, it's going to ruin the water. Well, we've already addressed the water issue. What other environmental impacts can you realistically, you know, point to as far as how this operation would work?
Well, there's been several studies done that compare, you know, typically that, you know, you've heard arguments that oil sand takes 3 times the energy to produce as conventional oil. But if you look at it from what they call a well to wheel, so from when you produce the resource to when it's consumed in the end use, typically as a motor fuel, if you look at those, oil sands total production energy input is between 5 and 15% higher than the average barrel in the U.S. So the petroleum products that we'll produce will be less than some of the high carbon impact fuels that the U.S. is using right now.
Is it a more pure material in the processing?
It's just we do have a very efficient processing. We've developed a process that extracts about 90%, 96% of the resource that's there. We recycle our solvent, recycle our water. We keep our operation hot, so we're not continuing to reheat virgin water. As I say, we reclaim right behind ourselves. Again, Canada and the U.S., some of the most highly regulated jurisdictions in the world. So you're going to get better environmental stewardship here than you would in other areas around the world.
Excellent. Good point on which to take a break. We will come back with more of the County Seat. We will wrap up and prepare for an extended conversation of this in just a minute. We'll see you back here in a minute.
Unlimited opportunity for adventure is all about knowing where to look. Get ready to grab the steering wheel and put your pedal to the metal as Millard County Raceway presents Championship Night. Saturday, October 6, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Millard County Fairgrounds in Delta, Utah. Go to MillardCountyRaceway.com for more info. Pick your adventure in Millard County, Utah.
Have you ever wanted to go on a vacation to Mars? What about a visit to the Old West? Impossible, right? Well, forget what you think is real. In southern Utah's Kane County, other worlds are just an ATV ride away. The Old West lives on in every sunset. From the downtown streets of Little Hollywood to the vistas that have inspired the world. Never find yourself closer to home and yet farther than you've ever been. Southern Utah's Kane County, where anywhere is possible.
Whatever your meeting needs may be, Sevier County is perfect. The brand new fairgrounds facility includes a large meeting hall, breakout rooms, and a perfect kitchen facility to feed just a few or hundreds. The county also boasts the Sevier Valley Center on the campus of Snow College Richfield. This facility includes an arena and numerous breakout rooms that can be used for any type of meeting, conference, or event. When planning your next meeting or conference, consider placing it in the center of it all, Sevier County.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.